The wind screamed through the mountains like a hungry beast. Snow fell hard and fast, turning the alien village into a sea of white. The storm had arrived too early. No one was ready. Lara clutched her child close to her chest, wrapping her thin cloak around his tiny body. His name was Zico. He was only 5 cycles old. His eyes blinked slowly, his small face pale and cold. "Hold on," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Just a little longer, my child." The cold bit her, skin like sharp knives. Her hands were numb. Her feet moved slowly through the thick snow. Around her, metal houses stood tall and locked. No one came out. No one opened a door. She pounded on the nearest door with her fist. "Please," she cried. "My child, he's freezing." A voice shouted from inside. "Go away, we have no space. We don't share, but he's just a child," she screamed, her voice breaking. Silenced. The wind howled again, blowing snow in her face. Her eyes stung. She turned to the next house, then the next, knocking, begging, crying, but no one helped. All doors stayed shut. Her species, the Drakai, were cold like the ice they lived in. Showing kindness was seen as weakness. Compassion was for the weak. And the weak did not survive. Lara dropped to her knees. Zico was not moving now. His small body was like ice in her arms. "Please, someone, anyone." Snow covered her shoulders. Her fingers trembled as she brushed his cheek. It was cold. Too cold. Tears froze on her face. She looked up at the sky, hoping for a miracle, but all she saw was gray and snow. Then a sound, crunch, crunch. Footsteps. Slow, steady footsteps walking through the snow. Lara turned her head. Through the storm, a tall figure moved toward her. Not Drakai. His body shape was wrong. He was wearing thick armor, with a glowing blue light on his chest. His eyes shone through a helmet. He was not one of them. He was a human. Humans were rare on this planet. She had only seen one once, from far away. They were said to be strange, soft-hearted creatures from a warm world. Her people called them too emotional. The man stopped in front of her. He looked down at her and the child in her arms. For a long second, nothing happened. Only the wind spoke. Then, without saying a word, he took off his thick jacket and knelt beside her. Carefully, he wrapped the jacket around Zico's small body. Lara blinked. "What are you doing?" The man spoke, his voice calm but firm. "Your child will die if we stay here." She tried to pull away. "You're human. Why are you helping us?" But he didn't answer. He simply picked up Zico in his arms and turned to leave. "Wait!" Lara shouted, crawling after him in the snow. "Where are you taking him?" He looked over his shoulder. "To shelter. You can follow, or stay." Lara stared at him. She didn't trust him. Her people didn't trust anyone, especially not humans, but she looked at her child, still unmoving in the stranger's arms. She had no choice. She stood up, legs shaking, and followed the man into the storm. They walked for what felt like hours through the blizzard. The snow grew deeper. The wind slapped their faces. Lara stumbled many times but kept moving. She had to. Finally, they reached a strange metal pod, half buried in the snow. The man pressed something on the side, and a door opened with a hiss. Warm air spilled out. Inside, it was small but filled with light and heat. Machines hummed. Supplies were stacked in the corner. The man placed Zico on a heated bed and pulled out a glowing pack. He pressed it to the child's chest, then another under his arms. Lara stood at the door, still not entering. "Why are you doing this?" He turned, removing his helmet. His face was pale, but his eyes were warm. "No one else did," he said simply. Lara's lips trembled. She stepped inside slowly and sat beside her child. The warmth wrapped around her like a blanket. It felt strange. Too soft. Too kind. She watched as the human checked Zico's breathing. then placed a scanner over his small body. "You're not like my people," she whispered. The human smiled gently. "That's okay. Maybe you needed someone different today." Outside, the storm screamed louder, angry and wild. But inside the pod, for the first time in her life, Lara felt something she had never known before. Compassion. The pod door sealed shut behind them with a soft hiss, locking out the raging storm. Inside, the air was warm, almost too warm for Lara, who had never known comfort like this. Her fingers were still shaking, not from the cold anymore, but from fear. Jeko lay still on the heated bed. His small chest rose and fell, slow and shallow. The human Callum was kneeling beside him, working silently. Beeping sounds came from the strange device in his hand. He placed glowing patches on Jeko's skin and then pulled out a thin tube from a case. Lara moved closer, her eyes wide. "What is that?" she asked, her voice cracking. "It's a warming injector," Callum replied. "It pushes heat into his blood. Helps him survive." She tensed. "You're putting things inside him?" Callum glanced up. "I'm trying to save him." Lara's mind raced. Her people didn't allow machines inside their bodies. They believed in natural strength or death. She wanted to stop him, but something deep inside whispered, "Let him try." Jeko let out a soft cough. Lara gasped. Callum looked relieved. "Good. That's a sign his lungs are working again." She stepped closer, her eyes locked onto Jeko's face. His cheeks were less pale now. His small hands twitched. Then she asked quietly, "Why are you helping us?" Callum didn't look up. He continued checking Jeko's pulse. "Because no one else did." "That's not a reason." "You don't know us." "I don't need to. You don't owe us." He finally looked at her. "You're right, I don't." She stared at him, confused and frustrated. No one ever helped without a reason. No one ever gave without taking. "More. Then why?" she pressed. "Why carry a freezing child through a death storm? Why risk your life? You could have walked past us. You should have." "I could have," he said, voice calm, "but I wouldn't have slept again if I did." Lara had no answer to that. Silence hung between them. She moved closer to her son and placed her hand gently over his. The heat from the bed was slowly warming him, but something else was happening too, something she couldn't explain. For the first time in her life, someone had chosen to care. She looked around the pod. Small, neat, wires on the walls, food packs and sealed boxes. Strange blinking screens and blinking lights. This wasn't a home, it was a survival pod. Damaged, emergency use only. You're stranded. She realized out loud. Callum nodded. "My supply ship crashed 2 days ago. I've been waiting for rescue. And yet, you still helped me." "I wasn't planning to help anyone today," he said, almost like a joke. But the universe had other plans. Before she could answer, a loud warning beep came from the console behind them. Callum jumped up and checked the screen. His face changed. "Serious, what is it?" Lara asked quickly. He tapped the screen. "Movement. Outside. Not the storm. Something else." Lara's heart sank. "They followed us?" Callum looked at her. "Who?" She swallowed. "Enforcers. From my village. They must have tracked your heat signal." Callum frowned. "They left you and your son to die. Why would they follow now?" She shook her head. "To make sure I did die." Another warning beep. Callum grabbed his weapon, a compact plasma tool, and placed a hand on the door panel. "If they come in here, I'll handle it." "No, wait." Lara stepped forward. "They'll kill you." He turned slowly. "Let them try." Lara stared at this human, this strange, warm-hearted being. He wasn't armed with power. He was armed with something far rarer. Courage. Outside, heavy footsteps crunched in the snow. Shadows passed by the pod's frosted window. Lara whispered, "If they come inside, I'll fight too." Callan glanced at her and gave a small nod. Then we protect your child. Together. Cliffhanger ending. A loud knock echoed through the pod 3 slow. Heavy bangs. Then a harsh voice spoke from outside, cold and cruel. You are hiding a criminal. Give her up. Or freeze with her. The pod was quiet. Too quiet. Except for the soft hum of the heater. And the sharp silence that followed the knock. 3 heavy bangs still echoed in Lara's chest. Her child Jeko whimpered in his sleep, unaware of the danger just outside. Callum stood by the pod door, weapon in hand, jaw tight. His breath came slow and steady, but Lara could feel it. He was ready to fight. Outside, the voice came again, cold, commanding. Give us the female and the child. They are unfit to survive. You are interfering. Callum didn't reply. Lara stepped closer. Her voice was low. They won't wait long. Callum looked at her. Is this how your people treat mothers and children? Lara lowered her eyes. Compassion is weakness. My kind believe that. Always have. The human's face twisted, not in anger, but disbelief. That's not belief. That's cruelty. She blinked. You think kindness makes you strong. I know it does. He turned to the door and pressed a button on the wall. A speaker crackled. Callum spoke into it. Go away, you abandoned them. I didn't. You have no right to take them now. There was a pause. Then cold laughter from outside. You think you can stop us, human? This is not your world. Callum replied calmly. Maybe not. But in this pod, these two are under my protection. Lara stared at him like she was seeing him for the first time. Who was this man? He didn't act like her people. He didn't look away when someone was weak. He didn't run when things got hard. He stood. And protected. That was something new to her. Something dangerous. Something beautiful. Then she whispered, You're different. You don't understand our way. And maybe that's a good thing. Callum turned to her. Tell me what they'll do if they get inside. They'll kill me, Lara said without hesitation. And take my child, to be used, or left in the cold again. Callum's eyes narrowed. Not happening. Suddenly, a loud thud shook the pod. The enforcers had begun trying to break the door. Lara jumped. Callum remained still, calm, focused. I can try to seal the door tighter, he said, but it won't hold forever. She moved toward the heating bed where Jiko was sleeping. She kissed his forehead gently and whispered, Stay asleep. Don't be scared. She stood and turned to Callum. Her voice was trembling, but her back was straight. I don't know how to fight. I was never trained. Do you know how to protect your child? He asked. She nodded. Then you're already a fighter. Another loud bang shook the pod. Sparks flew from one of the door panels. Lara asked, Can't your people rescue you? You said you were stranded. Callum nodded toward the back wall. A red light blinked on a panel. I sent a distress signal. But rescue could take days, maybe more, Lara frowned. Then we're alone? He gave a small smile. We're together. That's not the same as alone. She didn't know why. But those words gave her strength. Another crash. The pod groaned. Back up. Callum shouted, pulling Lara away just as the outer panel bent inwards. Cold wind blasted through the tiny crack. Lara covered her child. Then through the narrow opening, they saw a face. Dark skin. Cold eyes. Metal armor. The enforcer hissed. You had your chance, human. Now you freeze with them. Callum raised his plasma tool and fired. The shot hit the wall near the enforcer's head, sending sparks flying. The alien cursed and pulled back. Callum quickly tapped on his panel ceiling. The breach with emergency phone. Silence returned. Just for a second, Callum breathed hard. Lara placed her hand on his arm. You shouldn't be fighting our war, she said quietly. He looked down at her. I'm not fighting your war, he replied. I'm fighting for a child who deserves to live, and for a mother who was brave enough to beg strangers for help. Her eyes shimmered. She didn't have the words to reply. Then Chico stirred and whispered softly, "Mama, it's warm." Lara smiled through tears, but outside, the wind screamed again. The attackers weren't done. They would return, and the next time they would come harder. Cliffhanger ending. Callum stood over the child, his hand tightening around his weapon. He turned to Lara and said, "If we're going to survive this, we'll have to fight together." *blood. It was the first thing Lara saw when she opened her eyes. A smear of red on the pod floor, shining, fresh, wrong. Her heart froze. Then she saw him, Callum, leaning against the wall, breathing hard, one hand gripping his side. His armor was cracked, his blood slowly dripping through. "No," she whispered. She rushed to him and fell to her knees. "You're hurt." Callum looked at her, smiling faintly, took a blade. "One of them got a hand through before I sealed the door." "Again." "You should have let me go," Lara whispered. "They said they would kill you." He looked her dead in the eye. "I don't care what they said." Lara shook her head. "You don't understand. In my world, protecting someone like me is not just stupid, it's a death sentence." "I've had worse reasons to die," Callum said, trying to laugh. Then he winced from the pain. She didn't understand this man. He was bleeding, possibly dying, and still smiling. She quickly pulled open a medkit and scanned his injury. A deep gash, burning red. She grabbed a sealant and pressed it against the wound. He hissed in pain. "This may not hold long," she said. He shrugged. "Long enough." They sat in silence for a few moments, only the hum of the heater and Jeko's quiet breathing in the background. Lara looked at the door. "They'll come again," Callum nodded. "And they'll try harder." "Why not give me to them?" she asked quietly. He blinked. "You really don't get it, do you?" "No, I don't. My people don't." "Do what you're doing." "Exactly. That's why I'm doing it." Lara swallowed hard. "They will kill you." He leaned forward, voice calm but sharp. "Then they'll learn something important first, that humanity doesn't abandon the innocent, that we don't leave children to die in snow, that we fight." She stared at him like he was speaking a language she'd never heard before, because he was. This was a language of honor, of heart, of something she'd never known, true compassion, even in pain. Then a loud alarm blared from the pod. Callum checked the screen. His face changed. "They're jamming my distress beacon." "What does that mean?" she asked. "It means no one's coming for us." Lara's breath caught in her throat. "Then what do we do?" Callum stood, holding his side. "We make a plan." But before he could continue, a sharp bang hit the pod door again, then another, then a voice louder, this time colder. "You are warned, human. This is your final chance. Give us the traitor, or we take all three of you." Callum pressed the speaker button. "You'll take nothing. Go home before someone gets hurt." The voice laughed. "Someone already has." Lara's blood ran cold. "Wait," she whispered. "What do they mean?" Callum looked at her, then at the screen. A new image appeared, blurry but real. Her old neighbor, dead in the snow. Ella Chera gasped. "He gave me water last week." Callum said nothing. She whispered, "They're punishing anyone who helped me." Callum clenched his fists. "Monsters. They are my people," she said. "No," he said sharply. "They are not your people anymore." Silence. And then Jeko stirred again. The child opened his eyes slowly and looked at them both. "Mama, is the bad wind gone?" Lara leaned over and kissed his forehead. "Not yet, my love, but soon." Jeko looked at Callum. "Are you a protector?" Callum smiled. "Trying to be," Jeko smiled back. "Thank you." Lara looked at the human again. This man who had risked everything for a stranger. For her child. She reached out and touched his hand. If we live through this, she whispered, I want to learn your way. Callum gave a nod. Then we start by surviving. Cliffhanger ending, another bang. The door began to glow red. They were melting their way through. Callum turned to her, eyes sharp. Get your son. We're leaving the pod. The pod was burning behind them, not with fire, but with heat so intense, it turned the air to steam. The enemy had used a thermal torch. The door was melting. Smoke filled the small space, and Callum was barely standing. His steps were slow, uneven. Blood still oozed from his side, soaking through the quick seal patch Lara had applied earlier, but he didn't stop. He carried Jiko in one arm, held tight against his chest, and used the other to steady himself against the freezing rocks as they climbed through the snow. Lara followed close behind, looking over her shoulder every second. Her heart raced. They'll find us, she said. Not if we move fast enough. Callum replied through clenched teeth. We can't outrun them. Then we outthink them. The sky above them was a deep, stormy gray. Snow fell in wild flurries. Ice crunched under their boots. The only light came from the glow of Callum's survival suit, flickering faintly now. They reached a rocky cliff. Callum stopped. There, he pointed. That ridge. We can hide behind it. I saw it from the pod, might be a cave entrance. Lara nodded and helped guide him toward it. Jiko was breathing lightly, sleeping in the warmth of Callum's body. Heat and coat. You should have left me behind, she said softly as they walked. Saved yourself. Callum looked at her like she'd insulted him. I don't leave people behind, ever. She shook her head. But why? You don't know. Me. My people hate yours. You owe me nothing. He paused. The wind howled. Snow flew past like knives. Then he said slowly, Back on Earth, we have a saying, you measure a person not by how they treat the strong, but how they protect the weak. She looked at him puzzled. You and your son were left to die. He continued, But when I saw you out there, freezing in the snow, I saw something no scanner could measure. He stopped walking, eyes locked on hers. I saw a mother who refused to let go of her child, even in the face of death. Lara's breath caught. I saw strength, Lara, real strength. The kind I was raised to protect. She stared at him. Words caught in her throat. No one had ever said anything like that to her before. To her people, she was weak. A burden, a disgrace for begging, but to this human, she was brave. She felt something warm rise in her chest. Something she didn't recognize at first. It was hope. They reached the rocky ledge. A narrow opening was carved into the cliff, just large enough to squeeze through. Callum crawled inside first with Jiko. Lara followed. Inside it was dark and cold, but dry. The cave smelled like stone and old ice. It wasn't safe, but it was shelter. Callum laid Jiko down on a patch of soft dirt and collapsed beside him, breathing heavily. Lara sat down across from him. She looked at his pale face, his blood-soaked side, and the little child still alive because of him. Why would you risk your life? For me? She asked again. This time her voice trembled, not with fear, but something deeper. Callum looked at her through half-lidded eyes, tired, but still strong. Because someone has to be the first to break the cycle, he said. Your world is cold. Your people chose cruelty. But your son, he still has a chance to grow up better. She blinked, stunned. You're doing this, not for me, she said slowly, but for my child. Callum smiled faintly. For both of you. A long silence passed. Then she whispered, And what about you? Who's going to save you? He gave a weak chuckle. Hopefully. You. Lara looked at her hands. She had never fought for anyone before. Never protected. Never even believed. She could. But now? Now there was no one else. Cliffhanger ending. Suddenly outside the cave, footsteps. Not one. Not two. Many. Metal boots crunching in snow. The enforcers had followed their trail. Callum gripped his weapon with his last strength. He looked at Lara. Time to find out how brave you really are. Asterisk, the sky cracked with thunder, not sound. But something worse. A scream of the ice. Lara had heard it only once before. As a child, her clan called it the White Death. When the wind twisted so fast it ripped tents from the ground. When the snow turned to shards. When breathing outside meant your lungs froze from the inside out. And now, it was coming. Again, she stood at the mouth of the small cave, staring out into the growing white. The wind had changed. It didn't howl anymore. It growled behind her. Callum lay weak and bleeding. His face was pale, eyes closed, breath shallow. His weapon sat by his side, drained of power. He hadn't moved since the night before. And Jiko, her little boy, curled up next to him like a cub seeking warmth. She turned back toward the storm. The wind slammed into the rocks, outside like a living beast. Cold air was already seeping through the cave entrance, chilling her skin and heart. They wouldn't survive another storm like this. She knew it. She also knew what had to be done. Lara went to Callum's side and knelt beside him. "Callum," she whispered, shaking his shoulder. "You need to wake up." He didn't move. "Callum, please." His eyes opened slightly. "Still here," he said with a weak smile. She placed her hand on his forehead. "Burning hot. You're sick," she said. "Infection." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, I can feel it." She looked down. Her hands were shaking. Her breath caught. "I need to get you help," she said. "And Jeko," he blinked. "There's no help, remember? Signals jammed, pods destroyed." She hesitated, then looked at her wrist. She'd taken a small device from his pod before they fled. A signal booster. One chance, maybe. "There is one place," she whispered. "The high peak. Signal tower ruins. If I climb it, I might send the beacon again." Callum frowned. "You'll die in that storm." "Maybe, but if I don't, we all die." A long silence, then Callum took her hand weakly. "Don't do it for me," he said. "Only if you believe Jiko deserves to live in a better world." She gripped his hand tightly. "I do. And I believe that world starts with you." She stood and wrapped Jeko tighter in the human's coat. Then she looked Callum in the eye. "You kept us alive. Now it's my turn." She stepped toward the cave entrance. Wind slapped her face like knives. Her eyes teared up instantly. Snow stung her skin. She pulled the signal booster from her belt and held it tight. The path ahead was deadly. The ice would try to break her bones. The cold would crawl into her heart. But she had already been broken before, already left to die in snow. This time, she would walk into the storm by choice, not to escape, but to save. She looked back one last time. Jeko was watching her, wide-eyed. His voice was soft. "Mama, will you come back?" She forced a smile through frozen lips. "I'll come back, with help." And then, she stepped into the blizzard. Cliffhanger ending. As the wind swallowed her whole, the ice screamed louder. And far in the distance, unseen by Lara, a massive creature stirred beneath the snow. Snow crushed her. Every breath Lara took felt like swallowing knives. Her skin burned. Her eyes were nearly shut. The storm had no mercy. The ground vanished beneath her feet. The sky? Gone. Nothing but white. And yet, she climbed with frozen fingers. She pulled herself up jagged ice rocks. Her boots slipped. Her knees bled. But she kept climbing toward the old signal tower. Every step whispered in her ear, "Turn back. You're going to die." But she didn't, because back in that cave, a human was dying. And her son's small heartbeat depended on her. She reached the top. A metal skeleton rose before her, ancient tech left behind by her people long ago. The signal tower. Rusted, broken, forgotten, but maybe still useful. She pressed the human signal booster against the tower's remains. Lights blinked, weak, flickering. She hit it once, then again, and again. "No!" she screamed into the wind. "You have to work." A sudden blink. Then a beep. The booster lit up green. Signal sent. She collapsed to her knees, crying, laughing, freezing all at once. And far below the peak, inside the cave, Callum's communicator blinked. A connection. 1 day later, Lara woke to warmth. Not fake heat from a suit, but real warmth. Sunlight on her face, blankets, a soft hum of machines. She sat up fast. "Jeko." A tiny voice answered, "I'm here, Mama." She turned. Her son was sitting on a real bed, wrapped in warm blankets, sipping something thick and sweet from a human cup. Tears filled her eyes. "You're okay." Then a voice spoke from behind her. "Told you I'd still be here." She turned. Callum stood leaning against the wall, arm in a sling, his face pale but alive. "You survived," she whispered. He smiled. "Thanks to you." She stood slowly. "They said the rescue ship found us hours after I sent the signal." "Yeah, and your storm walk became quite the story." She laughed softly. "I'm no hero." "Lara," he said seriously, "you walked into a blizzard alone to save someone who wasn't even your kind. That's more than heroic." She looked down. "You were the first to show me kindness. I didn't even know what it was until you wrapped my son in your coat." He stepped closer. "You showed me something too. You showed me that even in a world that teaches cruelty, love can survive." Jeko suddenly laughed behind them. "Mama." The human said, "We're going to a new place." Callum nodded. "Earth, if you want, you'll be safe there. No enforcers, no freezing huts, just a chance." Lara looked at him. "You really think someone like me belongs in your world?" He smiled gently. "You already do." The human ship flew off the icy planet, rising into the stars. Inside, Lara held Jiko close, watching through the window as the snow-covered world shrank behind them. She whispered, "You saved us, Callum. Not just from the storm. You saved us from a world with no heart." He replied softly beside her, "And you reminded me why we fight to stay human." Their eyes met. And for the first time in her life, she didn't feel alone.